Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, and welcome to the Leader Post Rider Rumblings podcast. This is Volume 2, Episode 2. I nailed it.
All right.
It's Episode 1 for Murray McCormick. Murray was in Montreal last week when we recorded, Mont-Tremblant, Quebec last week while we were recording the first episode of the year. Thanks again to Ariel Zur for joining us last week. Murray was at CFL meetings, and I was here. So, we will start. There's so many things that we could talk about. There's Mexico. There's any number of issues with regard to the Rough Riders. Murray made a suggestion that we lead off discussing Adam Bighill re-signing with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for 3 years. And no, this isn't a Bomber podcast, but when you see one of the big names in the free agency pool signing well before the February 12th free agent deadline, I think it raises the eyebrows a bit, not so much as far as what's going on in Winnipeg, but okay, there's the specter of Mike Reilly, and I think the widespread expectation or assumption that he is going to test free agency and that a number of teams are going to be lining up. That may very well materialize, but there would have been a voracious appetite on the part of a number of teams for Adam Bighill, and he re-ups with Winnipeg in mid-January, so makes you wonder, is there a fallacy as far as assuming that Mike Reilly is going to test free agency?
That was the consensus at the CFL meetings amongst a lot of times. The sports writers standing around talking that Mike Reilly's going to go for free agency and sign with Alliance. That seems to be the consistency. But yeah, this Adam Bighill one kind of says maybe there is a thaw. Maybe these big time guys are going to take the chance on getting their money now. And I understand he gets pretty good money. He gets his salary bonus, his bonus when the new CBA is signed. So maybe there can be movement before the free agent deadline, and maybe it'll change everything. Because imagine if Mike Reilly signs before the free agent deadline, that changes the whole quarterback picture.
And in a few places.
In a few places, yeah. Like especially with the Riders, who do they go after then? You can't consider Bo Levi Mitchell an option because I think he's going to go to NFL.
And even if he doesn't, he's going to go stay in Calgary.
Yeah. So who's that leave him? Jonathan Jennings or Trevor Harris? And Trevor Harris is, I think he's going to go back to Ottawa. I think that's the best situation for him if he was offering me, if he wanted my advice. But it's about money and about what you're going to get, what you can get out of it. But I'm kind of stunned by Adam Bighill saying, I really kind of thought the big names would wait to see what free agency brought, test the market and see what you can get. But he gets a 3-year deal with a team that he wants to be, a town he wants to live in. You forget about that aspect. He wants to be a full-time resident in Winnipeg, and maybe it's a good place to live. Maybe we've got to stop slagging it all the time. Maybe there's something nice about Winnipeg.
Winnipeg has the Jets, and that's a wonderful thing.
That's true. And the forks. I love the forks.
And the knives. There was as far as Adam Bighill, people were speculating, well, he might go back to BC because he's got his home there. And so the same argument, I think, can be used, or a similar argument can be used in the case of Mike Reilly. Well, he lives in the Pacific Northwest, so BC would be nice and convenient. Well, the convenience of BC didn't deter Adam Bighill from re-signing with Winnipeg. So you wonder if, again, the Mike Reilly, some assumptions regarding Mike Reilly might prove to be false. And if you're the Edmonton Eskimos, that's your franchise. Yeah. You don't sign Mike Reilly, and what have you got? You've got a coaching staff that
doesn't have a quarterback.
And it isn't a very good coaching staff. So if you're Brock Sunderland, I mean, do you redouble your efforts now to try and get Mike Reilly under contract? You know what the cost is going to be. Yeah. I mean, don't think it's a mystery. It's going to take around $600,000 to re-sign Mike Reilly. So you know what the costs are going to be. I don't think money's going to be the issue necessarily. It's going to be what else is there on the table. And he has a good relationship with Jason Moss, and he has a familiarity with Edmonton, obviously, and likes it there by all accounts. So you got to think over the next 3 or 4 weeks that the Eskimos are really going to be working this hard to try and prevent him from testing free agency. Now,
it'd be considered tampering if the Riders went in there and tried to do anything, but the Riders have got to be breaking down their books to see how they can afford him, because more and more, we're finding out, this is the guy. He's the guy that's the key to the Riders season. I don't think there's any other quarterback out there that could make a big difference as Mike Reilly. I can't see them going the cost-effective route of finding 2 quarterbacks like we did with Kevin Glev and Brandon Bridge. You know, they could spend money elsewhere. They've got to spend the money to get a quarterback. They get a quarterback, arguably a 3-year deal that carries from 1920. What if the Grey Cup's here in the year beyond, and then Chris Jones can go off wherever he's going to go as a successful guy? Because I think that's the one piece the Riders have to have is a quarterback, and the best piece in the league is Mike Reilly.
The only one.
But going back to last year when they traded for Zach Claris was the best quarterback available in January. There wasn't anybody better than him. They traded a good pick to get him, and they got him, and it just didn't work out in so many ways. But I think Mike Reilly's, there's no gamble there other than he's 34, and he's pretty healthy. He hasn't been hurt a lot in his career.
Yeah, I mean, they had a 38-year-old quarterback 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's all. It's a
they
youth
had a,
movement.
they had a 35-year-old or 34-year-old quarterback the year before.
Well, it's a youth movement here. Yeah, things are getting younger. And
a 36-year-old quarterback the year before that.
Oh, yeah.
So, sorry.
That's okay. No, it can't be.
So 34 is young by their standards.
The 30s is the new 20, I guess, for the Rider quarterback situation. But I've really come around to the thinking that they've got to go really hard after Reilly. And I think financially wise, it was kind of put together neatly that there could be the cost of having as Claris and Brandon Bridge, but the cost is who do you get to back them up?
That's a misleading sort of assumption, just to add up the numbers, the salaries for Zach Claris and Brandon Bridge and say that, well, just give that to Mike Reilly. Yeah. But you still have to fill the roster spot. You're talking 2 salaries and 1 salary. You still have to fill that second roster spot with a quarterback salary. Yeah. So if it's an apprentice quarterback, what are you talking, 60 or 70? Something like that.
Like David Watford, 80. Is he the guy? But
no, but you still got to account for that roster spot that the second quarterback is filling. So, you can't just say, well, we're just going to give all that money to Mike Reilly and then we're going to play with 43 players. No, you need that 44th player, so you got to account for at least $55,000.
Even if he doesn't play a minute in a game, you still got to play practice. You still got to have some guy throw the ball effectively and be decent in practice. Which I know people are going to say, well, practice. But yeah, that's a big part of the game is getting set for the games. Get to a guy who's better than that. It's kind of interesting. I'm not sure how much Chris Jones' contract extension was for. Maybe $600, maybe. Could we have a quarterback making more than the head coach in the CFL?
Well, let's hope.
That'd be a real change, wouldn't it?
Let's hope. That's the way it should be. And it shouldn't be close. You look at the National Football League, Bill Belichick has paid very well, but Kirk Cousins is making a lot more than that. Yep. The money should go to the players. The big money should go to the players. And I still think they have a legitimate argument. Even though they've put the football operations salary cap in place and all that, you've still got an inequity where say Chris Jones, the money Mark Trestman was making in Toronto, you still got a situation where they are making the biggest salaries. Yep. And the Players Association doesn't really lobby hard and stick to its guns as far as making sure that there's a system in place where the players can make the most money, then it's a failed negotiation. Well, if Chris Jones is still making more than virtually every player in the league after the CBA is done, that the union has failed its membership.
Well, I don't see big raises coming out of this contract. I really don't see the new CBA getting them. And I hate to say it, maybe I've been brainwashed being at the CFL. I don't think there's a whole pot of money out there.
There is money.
There is.
They've got $500,000 to pay a head coach.
Yeah, they do that.
They've got 6-figure salaries to pay coordinators. They've got money for president CEOs. They've got money for vice presidents in charge of this.
I know that
teams have the money.
But they don't.
It's a smokescreen to think that
they don't choose to spend it on the players, though.
Exactly, and that's what the Players Association has got to ram through. I don't think they have the strength as a union. I don't think they have the resolve as a union to do that. But until there's not just 1 or 2 players, but a few dozen players making coach money, then the union's failed its membership. They've got to look at those examples, and they've got to look at the president CEOs. Yeah. And those higher level executives and say, okay, that's money that these teams can spend and have chosen to spend that's not being capped. They've got the money. They just choose not to spend enough of it on the players.
And I know it's not related to the CFL, but the Clemson Tigers who won the NCAA, the football.
Yes, Joey Walters, Homer Jordan.
Their defensive coordinator makes $2.2 million a year.
Isn't that amazing?
That number. I keep telling people that number, going, that's crazy money. For a college team, because I remember you probably watched the same game I did. Why isn't this guy going after NFL jobs? And I can't remember who says because he makes $2.2 million a year. Yeah, they're cutting pay to go to professional ranks. So that's salaries being out of whack. Isn't just a CFL world. It's kind of but maybe there's more chance to make more money with Randy Furby or Randy. I knew I was going to do that. I knew it.
Sorry. How can you tell you're a curling writer at heart and a Hall of Famer?
And a Hall of Famer, yes. But. Randy Ambrosi is trying to find different revenue streams. And I think kind of overlooked in all this Mexico stuff, this international stuff, and CFL PT 2.0 is they have to find different money. There's no more money in Toronto. Maybe there's no more money in Montreal or Vancouver.
There might be less money.
But so how do you expand that? Well, you have to go outside Canada. You have to somehow sell the ESPN contract. I don't know if we're getting paid for that, but that's still something that's more exposure. Please, the Mexican thing didn't cost a lot of money, a little more exposure. Maybe there's going to be some revenue coming in, going more international, maybe more money coming in. They have to expand the pool, not to the teams, but it's kind of the way, and that's survival of the league, I think. And I think Randy
Ding to
Randy Ambrosie.
Furby.
Randy
Sorry,
yeah. Randy Ambrosie.
Gillowich. We're going to get all these curlers in there.
Wojtowicz. Yeah. Randy Ambrosie realized that long ago. That's the way to expand the team and to get money coming in the CFL, and I commend him for that. I still don't see the end game in Mexico. I kind of think it's kind of fun. I think I'm going to volunteer to go down on that 10-day road trip I like Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, and maybe back through Huatuco, which isn't, we're close to each other, but that'd be a good, nice road trip. Of course, it'd be in the middle of summer, and that'd be pretty smoking hot, but maybe expand to Mexico. I don't know. I've
been to Mexico and have expanded while I've been in Mexico.
So. Would it be an all-inclusive road trip, I hope?
Management will deal with you on the particulars of that one.
That might be kind of fun. But it's interesting, too, that Randy Ambrosie once said that he wants he wanted the business season. He wanted this to be the business season. You think about how much stuff we're writing about now, the fact that Post Media sent 5 of us to the CFL meetings in the business season and stuff, too. And the CFL got how many stories out of that and stuff. So that Randy has drawn attention to this off season with more and more than before. It'd be just a couple signings and stuff like that. So he's done his job to expand the interest in the CFL. And I like that idea. I'm more than willing to go to Mount Tremblant every year. Soon I have to learn how to ski, though. I guess that'd be kind of a big part of it. I think we're the largest group of people that didn't have skis with us ever at that resort. So it was kind of neat. But I like how Randy's taking this league. I don't think he's forgotten about Toronto, Montreal, and the CBA and player safety and stuff. He's just going different ways about it right now, which is...
But let's get down to business. Rent a room at a hotel and just say, okay, we're ready to start negotiating.
But it's up to the players, Rob. The players have to inform the league that they're ready to start negotiating.
Rent a room at a hotel, say, we're ready. When are you ready?
I think it's going to be end of February. And Randy said that.
That's stupid. Well, that's absolutely idiotic. The free agency deadline is February 12th. The teams have got to know how much money they can spend.
Yep.
And presumably most of the big ticket players are going to wait until they know what the cap number is so that they can maximize their earnings. So the whole process might be preempted as a result of not having a CBA in place. Let's get this deal done.
I wonder if they're even negotiating.
They've still got 3 weeks. Let's get moving on this.
Well,
February 12th should be the essential deadline for the CBA.
Well, the problem is, Rob, the players doesn't have any leverage on February 12th. They have leverage on May 12th when this thing is over because they can hold over their head. They're going to stay out of training camps and they're not play games. That's their leverage point in this whole thing. And you talk about the players. They've got to have some leverage. They have no leverage right now. What can they take away?
What's to stop them from talking? What's to stop them from listening? Randy Ambrosie has talked so many times about wanting to have a rapport with the players. There's been doors that have been opened. Okay, let's test the extent to which this league is amenable to having open and progressive discussions with the players.
Is it on the players too?
They should be talking around the clock until February 12th.
Well, that doesn't happen in labor negotiations.
Well, just because it doesn't typically happen doesn't mean it shouldn't.
No,
what's the sensible thing to do here? They know February 12th is a deadline. Teams need to know how much money they have to spend.
Yeah.
Let's get moving on this.
I don't think it's going to happen by then, though.
Or at least have an idea, okay, is the cap going to grow incrementally or is there going to be a substantial increase in the cap? Even if teams have an idea how much they can spend, even if players have an idea what the cap is going to be, then you can make informed decisions on where to sign.
See, the way you're talking makes me think that you think there's going to be a strike or a lockout. Do you think it's not going to get settled before the season starts?
Oh, it'll get settled because it's a weak union. Yeah. And it's a traditionally weak union.
Because I remember I look back on 2014, the only team that voted against the CBA were the Riders. They were very upset, and I think it had a lot to do with the small increments to the salary cap and those things, but that's what they settled for, and they had to go back to work, and they all went back to work and got I think it was a 5-year deal. I think it'll be another long-term deal because they're not going to fool around with something. I asked Randy, what happens if they don't have a contract? Will you go back to work? Like, many people do don't have contracts because they can't come to an agreement. And he said, no, he doesn't want to go that way, but it didn't sound as if he ruled it out completely that he wouldn't go that way. But, they could play without a contract, but that doesn't accomplish anything.
No, I mean, and they're not accomplishing anything right now, so maybe that would be par for the course. I don't know. To me, it's just baffling.
I've never seen you this fired up over anything.
Just so
I can feel the heat, man.
They've known this thing. They've known for a while that this is going to be a difficult negotiation, and perhaps a groundbreaking negotiation. The players, at least based upon what they've said, sound like they mean business more than they did in 2004 or previously. Probably to the greatest extent that they have since 1974, when George Reed was in charge of the CFLPA and there was a walkout during training camp. But okay, let's get moving on this. February 12th should be the de facto deadline.
But that's the way the contract expires when the contract was signed.
That doesn't mean they can't talk.
I know.
It's absolutely baffling to me that both sides aren't really pushing to sit down, as opposed to let's let this come and go.
And I know you said typically, but we're pushing ourselves into part of negotiations that we don't know a lot about how the mechanics. It's just the same as anything if you're negotiating with a union at your business place.
It's common sense.
Well, I know it makes common sense.
It's absolute common sense. What are they doing? Why are they playing the fiddle while Rome burns here? Yeah. Like, talk. Get moving on this.
I think I read somewhere that Randy met with the union guys like once a month. So there has been communication.
So this should be done by 2091 at this rate then. I'm sorry. That's my rant for the day. What do you want to talk about, Murr?
I don't know. What
other curling items can we dredge up?
I saw John Morris yesterday. He was a pretty good shooter for a guy staying mixed doubles. It sounds like we're going to have the decision made on the 2020 Grey Cup by the end of the month. And then we're probably going to hear about, 10 minutes after it's decided, and the official announcement will be 2 weeks later.
That's not cynical at all.
No. You all know Regina, Hamilton, and Montreal are the three centers bidding. I've been looking into some of the bids and stuff, and they've all got some pretty good bids out there. This is an interesting process. It's more than just Regina has everything going for it. We have the stadium, we have the facilities, we have everything in one spot. Hamilton and Montreal put together some pretty solid bids. So,
how do you say no if the Riders are interested in hosting, though?
That's the thing. Is how do you say no to the Riders?
That is the franchise in the league. I don't think I'm being sort of region-centric by saying that. And it drives a lot of what happens in this league as far as revenues.
And but it's not as if it's not going to come here sooner or later.
No, but if the Riders think it's their turn in 2020, it probably should be. I think they have that much influence.
Yeah.
And they're that big.
But they're one of 9, could be 10 voices in this, and the voices could be less because there'll be maybe one of 6. Because I would think you'd have to exclude yourself from voting on the bidding. If you have a bid in the Grey Cup,
well, the president, and the prime minister get to vote for themselves. So
that's true too. So I don't know how that part's going to work. But
in the States, who knows what? There's no logic to what goes on there as far as who's voting for what. But you would think there'd be a little more sensibility as far as the voting for the Grey Cup. To me, the sensible decision is okay. Saskatchewan wants it. Saskatchewan gets it. The other two can fight over 2021
I don't think
and
Montreal
2022.
deserves it yet. I think Montreal's got to get its house in order before it could be lining up for a Grey Cup. And I think Hamilton does. There's nothing to say anything wrong why Hamilton shouldn't get a Grey Cup. They got a new stadium.
They're in line first. They got the new stadium first.
So that that could be a thing to say. They were there first. They're I still think they're sorting out the seating, but I'm not quite sure about that. But Hamilton's a good place. I think. Regardless, it's going to be an awesome Grey Cup. It'll be pretty cool here, and then you and I can just sort of drop our mics and hobble off into the future, our futures after that, maybe.
No, that's not the plan.
No, maybe I can just dream of that one day.
I will be doing this until forehead hits desk.
Well, that happens all the time to you.
And it might happen before the podcast is over. So,
yeah. What other parts of the wait? We should talk a little bit more about the Riders. What do you think? Do you think Willie Jefferson's going to resign?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you think Mike Egan's going to resign?
I think the Chris Jones connection with Willie Jefferson is so good. Yeah. And Chris Jones being a defensive-oriented coach, he's going to make sure that his pieces are in place. And Willie Jefferson is basically said to NFL teams, I'm not working out for you. Offer me a contract if you want me to go down there. Or if you want me to be interested in going down there. There hasn't been any updates on that. If Willie Jefferson plays in the CFL, you would think he'd play in Saskatchewan. Chris Jones is going to make sure that happens, especially after losing Sam McGuavin. Yeah. You've got to make sure that another one of your really important defensive pieces is in place.
Sam was overlooked. I think his contributions that we didn't really talk about. I talked about for a couple of league awards and stuff, but he was kind of overlooked, his contribution in the Riders. I think he's going to go down and do well there. I think he's can play in special teams and kick around for a while. But same token, You know, you never know who's in front of them. Like how many times have guys signed and they think they're going to do well, and all of a sudden they draft 2 guys ahead of them, and they sign some other free agent, and the guy's back up here in a blink of an eye.
But his body type and his skill set, I think, is really conducive to being able to go down there and play well. Look at Brian Peters. And Brian Peters was not an exceptional player. He was a good player. And he's still dining out on the National Football League, doing really well. So Sam McGuavin, I think, he was a more impactful player than Brian Peters, a sideline to sideline player. At the very least, you'd think he'd be able to make a real impact on special teams. And you know, I look at even, you know, Jordan Williams-Lambert, and had a good year, Western Division Rookie of the Year, but didn't set the league on fire.
No.
Neither did Dontrell Inman. And he's still playing in the NFL. Yeah. If you look at Jordan Williams-Lambert's numbers this year and compare them to both of Dontrell Inman's seasons in Toronto, those numbers are very similar.
Yeah.
So
a lot of it has to do when you end up if there's a spot there open for you, if they needed that position too.
Yeah,
that,
you know,
it depends. Where timing is huge in that league and that kind of stuff.
And who knows what the draft will bring, and who knows what free agency will bring. Yeah. And I doubt that they've put a lot of money into the signing bonuses for Williams-Lambert or for Sam McGuavin. So,
well, I think Sam has been in the NFL, wasn't he? Did he sign once before? No,
I'm not sure. Let's talk curling.
I watched mixed doubles yesterday. It's a fast-moving game, kind of fun to watch.
What else is going on rider-wise that's worth noting, or should we just wrap it up? Anything else that's really burning at you?
We'll probably sign off and say, oh, geez, we forgot about that. I can't think of, you know, it used to be January was somehow you talk about curling. Back in the olden days, the beat guy covered curling. That's what we did. A lot
of newspapers would take their CFL writer and say, "Okay, you're covering curling during the winter."
And it doesn't happen. And I loved it. And that's how I wasn't did as much. But curling's a great game. I know people kind of make fun. All the people listening to this podcast are all probably rolling their eyes. Well, maybe one, but you know, it was kind of fun to get to a curling rink again yesterday for the 5 or 6 people who were there watching mixed doubles. Really didn't draw a big crowd, but. Yeah, I can't. You know, the writers, we're going to keep talking about it. Like at the CFL meetings, there's a lot of talking because basically, I'll give you a quick. We had like a 3-hour window to interview everybody we could, and then the other 3 days we sat around waiting for meetings to end or Randy to come out to inform us on something else. So it was kind of cool because I had breakfast with Jim Popp, just talking life and football with Jim Popp, who's a great conversationalist. Corey Chamberlain came up to me and quick story. He says, he asked, how's my mom doing? Because he knows my mom lives in Toronto. And he was very disappointed I didn't stop to see her. And he asked, how's my granddaughter doing? And the same thing, I talked to Orlando Steinhauer. He's really a funny guy. Devon Claybrooks is going to be a character. His press
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
He made me laugh harder than most times than anybody there. And I think, and he knows the game. He's a pretty smart guy. He's got a good staff together. Mark Mueller's with that staff now, I think.
Has he moved over to BC?
Yeah, I think so. There was some talk about that.
I thought Mark was staying in Calgary.
Well, I thought this is what the rumors were a little bit about that, but I don't know if that's 100% true. But it was so, and you got to meet GMs and the presidents and stuff, and it was a real opportunity because, you know, in our world, it's so scrum based and so orchestrated and so everything's locked down that we don't get a chance to even find out these guys have a heart. And I can tell you, after my little bit with Chris Jones has a heart. Can be a little funny. We were talking about different things, and he was kind of...
I've talked to Chris Jones one-on-one twice, and he's been outstanding to talk to one-on-one. The problem with scrums, if there's 7 or 8 people in the scrum, plus cameras, plus everything, you don't have a rapport necessarily with everybody, and you know it's being recorded by everybody, and so you have to be careful. And if let's say there's 7 reporters in a scrum, and you know and trust 6 of them, but you don't know or trust the 7th. It might be somebody just who happens to be there that day. You're gonna gear every comment toward I don't trust that person. I don't know that person, and it's going to be very careful political stuff. But when you actually have a chance to have a conversation with an exchange, and with it can be really cool. And the 2 chances I've had to talk to Chris Jones, I've been so impressed on both occasions.
I would love.
But you don't see that side of him very often.
I would love to have a chance to talk because the things he's been through in all his career, all the different coaches and Don Matthews and different sort of.
He lived on a boat when he was with the Argos.
Yeah, I remember Ken Miller telling us he slept in the offices, and you found out these kind of things. And he lives in hotel rooms, and he's got to watch his dial-up because we all know by living in hotel rooms, it's not exactly health food waiting for you when you walk out your door and all that stuff. But doesn't happen because it's just the world we're in right now that.
people. Thing is, though, people felt like they knew Ken Miller by and large.
Yeah.
And you could make a very good case that it was on his watch that the biggest coaching gaffe in Rider history took place. I don't need to be more specific than that. And you know what? He weathered it. A lot of coaches would have been fired or vilified, stigmatized as a result of that incident. But you know what? People rallied around the Riders, and they rallied around Ken Miller. And I think it's because they felt that people knew him. Yep. If the Riders were able to, using the media as a conduit or in various other forms, be able to allow the public to see the Chris Jones that you've seen and I've seen when we've had those rare opportunities to talk to him one-on-one, I think they would warm up to him a lot more quickly. I was at the annual general meeting in 2016 when he spoke largely extemporaneously to the crowd, and he had them in the palm of his hand talking for 20 minutes. But
it's like 2.5 years ago.
But those opportunities have been few and far between. I've never seen Chris Jones have an interaction with a fan after practice or whatever that hasn't been thoroughly impressive. Yeah. So I don't know if the Riders could create some sort of scenario whereby the fans actually could get to know Chris Jones a bit or feel like they knew him, like people felt like they knew Ken Miller. Maybe there'd be a little more empathy when some controversial decisions are made.
When I was talking to Corey, and we're talking about the fact when he came here in his first 2 years, Corey Chamberlain I'm talking about, he did a lot of stuff. He went to almost every dinner. He did every sort of thing they were asked, and he got away from that. And
we go to every dinner though.
Yeah, but Chris doesn't have a cachet with the Rough Rider fans. They don't know him as a dinner after dinner. So he doesn't do that.
And part of it's logistically, he's down.
I know, and his job is to win football games. It's not to make sure you had a good chicken dinner or to make sure Murray and Rob are happy because we had a one-on-one. His job is to win football. And I've said this before. Chris Jones figured out a long time ago the media doesn't help him win a game, and he deals with us professionally. Sometimes. I'm almost all the time.
No,
I've never had it. He gets a little, right, everyone's entitled to be in a bad mood every now and again, so it's fine. But he realized that we don't help him, and then, so it's not that sort of thing. So that falls upon
there is that capital when you build that kind of relationship that Ken Miller had.
But
then you have a 13th man, and that could have been the end of a coaching career there. And Ken Miller coached that team for, 1.5 more seasons as it turned out. And it was like a love-in over Ken Miller, and at some point he's going to be in the Plaza of Honor, and he was the head coach when the 13th man thing happened. And I think a lot of the latitude that was granted to Ken Miller was because the fans liked him, and the media liked him.
So when your coach is that guy,
I'm just trying to defeat your argument.
But when your coach is that guy, who does it fall upon? Quarterback. And who didn't want to do that with this team? I don't think Zach had any interest in being the face of the team, being the guy out having dinners and giving. He did the touchdowns and stuff and the passing yardage things, but I don't think that was really kind of overwhelmed everybody. So if that doesn't, so the Riders don't have a face other than the brand, and I think the Riders are more than a brand. I think they need a face, and that's Mike Reilly. So we can take us way back to where we started from. There's no better face and no better dresser than Mike Reilly.
Can you imagine?
Oh, man,
honestly,
I would have to tell you what, you wouldn't come to every practice. Because every column you would write be on Mike Reilly.
It's just like talking to Kevin Glenn every day. I seized every opportunity. And Darian was extraordinary that way as well. It would be the 2000 and what year is it? 2019 version of Glenn Dobbs, where this star quarterback comes into town and instantly owns it. It would be Glenn Dobbs, our opportunity to see what life was like in 1951 when it was Dauberville in Saskatchewan, because he would absolutely take over. Mm-hmm. And we got glimpses of that. We saw how popular Henry Burris was, and we knew how popular he could have been. With that kind of personality. We saw Darian Durant at his absolute peak, and finally people by and large appreciated what he could do. I grew up with Ronnie, and by the end of it, it felt like some people almost took Ronnie for granted.
Oh, they did,
but for Mike Reilly to come in here, for the Riders to win a bidding war, and the opportunities to just have the franchises, have the brand grow at the same time that Mike Reilly is here, the opportunities and the possibilities are infinite. We've never seen anything like that before.
There's nobody in this as much as we tout this free agent class, there's nobody in his league to do that, to be able to. So, but you know something? I think just about every other team's going to have to take a. Well, Winnipeg won't have to take a look at it, and maybe possibly not Toronto.
But one thing the Riders can do that nobody else can do, and Justin Dunk mentioned this in his story last Friday about the Rough Riders being poised to really go after Mike Reilly with some determination. There's off-field possibilities here and post-football possibilities. Because you're Mike Reilly and you're the Rider quarterback, it could go absolutely wild as far as monetary opportunities for him.
We haven't really seen that in the past. Like Darren Durant had a truck. I don't think we saw much else than he had that, and he was about as high profile as he. It hasn't really, not in my time. I don't remember seeing the quarterbacks rolling in dough.
No, but what if
most of the money was made through appearances?
But what if the quarterback were to come here and to really court it? You go back to 1997 when the Riders drafted David Archer first overall in the Sacramento expansion draft, and a lot of their offer to David Archer was based upon remuneration outside of that which is provided by the team, and that was going to be a huge part of that deal if he came here. You know, if a quarterback wanted to cash in here, Riders sign marquee quarterback, somebody who's been the most outstanding player in the Canadian Football League. I think the advertisers are lining up.
Yeah. I don't know how you can.
And who else can rival that? If you're Mike Reilly and you're in Edmonton, you decide you want to make some extra dough. Well, the big name in town is still Connor McDavid, and after that it's Leon Draisaitl, and after that
Milan
it's
Lucic?
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Milan Lucic? No.
You know, and he had 2 goals.
He had 2 goals.
And so every other market, basically, you're competing with an NHL team. Even if you're in Hamilton, you're still competing with John Tavares to a degree. You come here, you own this market, you own this city, and what are the financial rewards? And no other team can rival that.
Sounds like you're trying to sell Mike Reilly on the Riders.
That is their niche.
Yeah.
I don't think their niche is the
offense.
offense.
But how can you say to a guy that's going to sign, okay, can you guarantee them this off-field money? I don't know.
You have sponsors and advertisers and everybody.
It's not
lined
like
up.
Back in the day, used to go work for Crown Corporations. Remember that?
Yeah, then there were a lot who did, and maybe there's some vocational opportunities there too. Maybe there's some public appearance.
If you're making $600,000 a year, do you need an off-season job?
It's a short window as a professional football quarterback.
Yeah.
You can set yourself up so amazingly here more than anywhere. And I think that's the Riders' advantage over everybody else. It's not the offensive package. It certainly isn't the weather. It's not proximity to home, but it's if everybody's offering, say, $600, $625, $650, and the Riders can push a shopping cart full of opportunities to him that nobody else can even dream of, let alone rival, I think that's their niche.
Yeah.
You know, if it's, hey, Mike, you can make $1 million a year once you add everything up. That's pretty hard to turn down when you're in the prime of your career. So, Mark, have we gone too long?
You're at 30 minutes, 33 right now.
We're at 33 minutes. We're going to go another 114 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, yeah. Do we have anything else to say about Mike Reilly? I don't think so.
I'm filibustering a lot today. I do apologize.
He dresses well. He's got the nicest hats. He dresses well. I've written about that.
So who? Okay, let's look at the hats for example. Is there a men's clothier in town that sells hats? Could there be a better endorser than Mike Reilly in the hat?
Mm-hmm.
Like honestly, you can build all this stuff up.
But you and I wear hats every day, and there's ball caps. I haven't really quite seen.
Let me find it.
No, keep it away from that. We're just going to mess your hair. Oh, he's leaving. Folks, Rob Vanstone has left the
Yorkton
table.
Terriers.
Wow.
My godson Eric Anderson used to be in charge of marketing for the Yorkton Terriers.
Yeah.
But I paid for the hat, and so this is the kind of high quality clothing that we wear here. But I mean, who is it? Colin O'Brien, or who sells hats in this city?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it's a built-in lucrative endorsement deal. You would think for player and company, the hats are already in place. It's a neat hat trick. Why not pull it off?
Yep.
You know,
well,
look at when Weston Dressler came back from the NFL in 2014. Everybody was lined up. Dairy Queen was going to give him free blizzards until he was 115. And Italian Star Deli, I think, named a panini after Weston Dressler, et cetera, et cetera. And there were all these little perks and people trying to entice Weston to come back. And he'd really never given no thought to going anywhere else, as it turned out anyway. But can you imagine if you started to line up, if all these businesses started to line up and, okay, here's free cable, here's free this, here's free internet, here's a free leader post. I guess it's free online anyway. But honestly, what an absolute grocery list of perks there could be. So there. I'm talking too much. Save us.
All right. I think we're done.
Okay.
Done.
Professionally, I'm obligated to read this and display my immense skills of literacy. Please rate us on iTunes and leave a review. It helps us grow the podcast. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email me at rvanstone@postmedia.com, and we might read your question on the show. That's a lot. That's really promising, isn't it? We might read your question. We will read your question on the show as
we
long as
haven't
it's
been
not
inundated
defamatory.
with questions yet, have we?
No, but it's the new year. So if you'd like to ask any questions, I'm at Rob Vanstone on Twitter. He's at Murray LP.
On Twitter, too.
And
yes.
Murray will also field your curling questions. So
Yeah.
for Murray McCormick, I'm Mike Reilly's new agent.
Yes, Mike Reilly's
Rob Vanstone.
public relations firm.
We'll do this again next week. Thanks for being with us, and have a good day.
Maybe we'll have something on Mike Reilly by then.
Who knows? Stranger things have happened in this league. Take
Has he
care.
replaced John Carter as the most mentioned guy on the podcast?
Oh, it's. Can you imagine? We'll have a little tote board.
Yeah.
So, anyway, for Murray, I'm Rob. Thanks for being with us today.